Baruchot habaot, ladies, and welcome to another edition of Torah Anytime. And to those who came out here today, to our Ohel Sarah family, to join us for another series on another chapter of Shalom Bayit. Just want to remind you all out there, if you're enjoying these sessions, please don't forget to click the follow button so that you're informed as to when the next shiur will be posting. And I want to thank you so much for your love and your emails and all your good words that you've been sharing with me. Hashem yishmor otchem. Last time we spoke, we ended with the idea that a husband and a wife have to take precautionary measures to protect each other from outside influences and from chas v'shalom circumstances that could lead to the ultimate betrayal in a marriage. There was once a lady who said to me concerning this matter, Rabanit, I'm a very religious woman. These things can never happen to me. And I said to her, excuse me, but the things that we're discussing, do they concern religion or the nature of the human psyche and characteristics? We were talking about a woman who's thirsty for compliments, who yearns for a good word from her husband and somehow finds it somewhere else. Is this a religious matter? Or can this happen anywhere in the world, to anybody in the world, even if the person is an atheist and doesn't believe in anything? This is human nature. This is the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu created every woman and every man. This is not a religious matter. A woman yearns for a deep connection, while a man desires to fulfill it physically. That's the way the world is, whether you're a religious person or not. And even if you consider yourself a religious person, let me tell you a story from the Gemara. The Gemara relates that there was a tremendous Tana named Rabbi Hanina ben Tradion, alav shalom. He was actually counted amid the 10 martyrs who perished unfortunately in a horrible way during the Roman era. He was one of the Asara Harugei Malchut. The Romans proclaimed at that time that any man who studies Torah or publicizes it has to be executed, he, his wife, and his entire family. But Rabbi Hanina continued teaching Torah, and he was unfortunately caught by the Romans. His verdict was death by burning. What did the Romans do? They took a holy Sefer Torah and they wrapped it around Rabbi Hanina's body. They lit a fire underneath his feet and placed sponges all over his body, wet sponges all over his body, so that the fire wouldn't consume his body too quickly, because they wanted him to die a slow and painful death, those Rashaim. On the same day of his execution, the Romans took his wife and they wanted to kill her too. And then they took his modest and pious daughter and they put her in a brothel. The Gemara asks the following question. We all know that there's a din and there's a dayan. We all know that there is judgment and there's a heavenly judge. But why did this pious and modest young girl have to be punished in this way, where she was taken to a place filled with znut and promiscuity? And the Gemara answers that one time Rabbi Hanina's pious daughter was walking down the street and she saw a group of young Roman boys sitting on the edge of the gate. And as she passed by, one of those young Roman guys told his friend, "Ra'ita kama na'im psiyoteha shel riva zo?" Did you see how nicely and refinedly, attractively this young maiden walks? The Gemara tells us that Rabbi Hanina's daughter heard this and she liked it. It did something to her. So the next day she made sure to walk in an even more attractive and refined manner. At that moment, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, "En ra'ui letzadeket shekmotech lalechet kach." It is not befitting for a righteous maiden such as yourself to walk in such a manner and attract such attention on purpose. So when the Gzar Din came upon her household, she too was affected, and she was ultimately taken to a brothel. You see the power of a good word? How religious and pious was Rabbi Hanina's daughter? More than you and me, that's for sure. And yet one endearing sentence from a total stranger, from a Gentile, affected her. Therefore, all women have to be careful and protect themselves, and all husbands have to do whatever they can to ensure that such situations never arise. So I recommend to the men that they should learn more about a woman, about their roles as a husband, about the halachot of taharat hamishpacha, and in general, learn about the manner in which a Jewish home should run and look. But the point is that men have to appease their wives, like we said in the last class. They have to entice their wives. They have to create a warm and pleasant feeling in their wives. You have to compliment and utter nice words. You have to make your wife feel good. You have to make sure that she feels that you're listening to her, that you're interested in her. She has to feel that you feel that there's no one out there in the world other than her for you. And not only that, but the compliments that you bestow shouldn't just be about what she's wearing and about her personality. They should also be about the way she cooks. A woman loves to hear compliments about the food that she takes the time to prepare for you. After all, it's you she's taking into consideration when she's spicing the meat. It's you she's thinking about when she shops for the food that's going to be in the refrigerator. It's you who's on her mind as she prepares the meal that she hopes you're gonna enjoy. A woman invests many hours in the kitchen in order to make you happy. So take the time and give her a compliment concerning the food. And one thing I'm going to warn you about, guys. Don't tell her the food is delicious before you even tasted the food. There's always that one husband who doesn't think before he opens his mouth, and he compliments the wife before he puts the food in his mouth. You should know that women don't appreciate undeserved compliments or exaggerated ones, so think before you talk. That being said, I'm going to teach the men out there how you say thank you for the soup that your wife prepared for you. Now, pay attention. As soon as your wife puts the bowl of soup in front of you, the first thing you do is look up and straight into her eyes, and with a smile you say, "Thank you." Got it? Thank you are two very important words. When you go to the bank and the teller deposits your money, don't you say thank you? Thank you are two words that express your appreciation for something that somebody did for you. In the case of your wife, she actually cares. Okay? So, after you finished saying thank you with a smile, you take only one sip from the soup, and you put the spoon down, you close your eyes, and you smile. She's going to see that. She's going to say, "Shimon, what happened? What happened?" You say, "Miriam, what happened? What happened? I'm going to tell you what happened. I just realized, Miriam, that my mother could learn a few things from you in the kitchen." Oh, you know what you just did to your wife? You made her life. All this time she's always feeling like she has to live up to your mother's food. And you just told her that not only is she living up to that standard, but she surpassed your mother. Ve'at alit al kulana. Speaking of the Eshet Chayil, by the way, some men out there really need to step up their game when it concerns this extremely poetic and descriptive narrative of the woman of valor that you have to sing to your wives every Friday night before Kiddush. But let me give you an example of how some men out there sing this song to their wives. You see, there are 4 kinds of husbands. The first one sings Eshet Chayil like this. Eshet Chayil mimtza ורחוק מפניני מיכה That's the first kind of guy. The second kind of husband sings it like this. Eshet chayil mimtza verachok mipnini micha. The entire song, he's staring at his mother's picture on the wall, Aleh Shalom, and he's thinking, I miss you so much, I miss you. That's husband number 2. Then there's husband number 3, who sings the song like this. אשת חיל ממצא ורחוק מפניני מיכה בטח בלמעלה. So boring, so blasé, so emotionless, so unexciting. But then there's husband number 4. That man takes the kiddush cup in his hand. He looks into his wife's eyes lovingly, and he begins to sing. אשת חיל ממצא ורחוק מפניני מיכה. What happened at that moment? Both of them are filled with emotion. Both of them feel the love. And she's now filled with romantic feelings for her husband. To the men I ask, which number husband would a woman prefer? You know which one, I know which one. It's husband number 4. But anyway, back to our original thought. A man has to learn more about the home, about the wife, his role as a man, what pleases her, what displeases his wife. Every man should know that the most difficult year in a marriage is the first year, and if that year isn't handled correctly, a woman will always remember, it'll stay in her heart and in her mind. It's in that year that unfortunately many mistakes are made, so you have to be careful to create real shalom in the house during the first year, because that first year is the time when you're beginning to build the foundation of your home. The pasuk in Sefer Devarim states, Ki yikach ish isha chadasha. When a man gets married and he now has a new wife, v'tzimach et ishto asher lakach. He has to see to it that the woman whom he chose, he has to make her happy. It's not for naught that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told the man that he should make his wife happy. Because when a woman is happy, she'll always remember the joy in her heart. Moving on, we're going to discuss 3 points concerning a woman. Point number 1 is something we said in all of our classes. A woman comes from the world of regesh, from the world of emotions. That world is full of imagination, and the imagination can sometimes run wild and can even be exaggerated. As such, the imagination can create fear in a woman, even the fear of a little creepy crawling thing. Now, as much as a man will explain to a woman that there's nothing to be scared of because that little thing is smaller than her, it's not going to help. Some men argue with their wives about this, and they don't realize they're providing entertainment for that little roach who simply won't go away because he's just busy watching them fight. He's having a great time, the roach. You should know that what I'm telling you now provides us with insight as to the differences between men and women. A man is sechel. He functions from the world of intellect. A man sees the exact proportions of something. He's very calculated. A woman does not. A woman is extremely detail-oriented, and when I say detail-oriented, I mean every little minute detail. You know what a woman sees when she sees a roach? She doesn't see a roach. She sees an army tank. She sees the crooked legs and all the little details that little thing crawls on the floor. She sees everything. Those little details are magnified in her world of imagination, and it makes something small appear larger than it is. You understand? That's why you see something small and she sees it big, because she has a big imagination. Don't call your wife a baby when she overreacts to a roach. Don't argue with her about such things, because it's not going to help. It's not worth the argument over such an insignificant matter. If she wants you to kill that little guy, you don't argue. You just ask, honey, how do you want me to kill it? A fire, water, hanging, strangulation, poison? Should I step on it? What do you want me to do? Whatever you want, I'll do. You have to understand that this is the way a woman was created, and that part of her is not going to change. Her imagination magnifies everything she sees. So men have to know how to deal with it rather than to do battle against it. Now, another point I want to mention to the men, and you should consider this, guys, as a precious diamond that I'm offering you that's going to remedy many of your shalom bayit issues. It's kedai to pay close attention to this point. Whenever you're trying to discuss things with your wife, whenever you want to convince her of something or make her see your point of view, always approach her from the angle of emotions. What does that mean? If you're going to try to convince her or change her mind about something through sechel, it's not going to work. Instead, you have to use the world of emotions in order for her to see your viewpoint. If you're going to manage to convince her through the world of emotions, she's going to be able to process the information a lot faster, and that information is going to travel very quickly to the heart, and she's then able to bring to fruition that which you requested. Because there are many times you ask your wife for something and she claims to understand, but then she doesn't comply. And once she doesn't comply, you, misken, you're misken, it's true, you utter those repetitive words that no one ever likes to hear. You say, how many times do I have to tell you that I don't like so much starch on my shirts? Why do you say that? You know why? Because you can't understand why she just doesn't get it. She just doesn't get it. You know why she doesn't get it? Because something in the way that you're transmitting your words isn't making enough of an impression on her. You may have explained things to her in a very logical way, but not necessarily did you come from an emotional place. You see, because we said a woman is full of emotions. She'll only start to implement things when the emotions move her, when they touch her in some way, when you've touched that point of regesh. If you're going to explain things in a logical way, she may or may not comply. You're taking a risk. But if you're going to touch her emotionally, she's definitely going to respond. So I advise you to touch her inner world of emotions if you want her to be responsive to you. I'm going to give you an example of something that took place 2,000 years ago so that you understand this point. There was once a rabbi named Rav Yosef, alav shalom, who was the leader of his generation. He was the Rav Rashi of Eretz Yisrael. His wife was so busy with the preparations of Shabbat that she didn't manage to light the Shabbat candles on time. She lit the candles around the Shkia time. Now, as you know, during ancient times, there were no watches, there were no clocks on the wall, so it was very easy for a person to make a mistake when it concerned the hour of the day. Now, as a side note, just so you know, the halacha says, if a woman lit Shabbat candles 1 minute before the Shkia, she wasn't mechalel Shabbat. But if she lit the candles 1 minute after the Shkia, it's considered a chilul Shabbat. But anyhow, how would a noted rabbi in that generation explain to his wife to light Shabbat candles on time? No watches, no clocks. Let's see how Rav Yosef inspired his wife to light the candles in the proper time before the Shkia. When Rav Yosef saw that his wife didn't light the candles on time, he came over to her amid the rush of Shabbat and he said, my dear wife, would you like to sit down and speak with me for a few minutes? She said, did you say talk? Oh, of course I want to talk to you. He already pulled her. He actually initiated a conversation as a yofi. As soon as she sat down, he says, what can I bring you to drink, my dear wife? Water, coffee, tea? How do you want the drink? With a straw? How many cubes do you want in your sugar? 1, 2, 3? She was so appreciative that she was already attentive. And then he said, my dear wife, do you know that Bnei Israel were wandering in the desert for 40 years? And she said, yeah, it's true. They did wander for 40 years. I remember learning that. And then he said, and do you remember how when they were traveling, there was a cloud of glory and a pillar of fire that led the way for them during the day and during the night? And she said, you're right. I remember learning about that pillar of fire and the cloud of glory. And he continued, my dear wife, let's me and you imagine together. Imagine how that pillar of fire led the way for them in the desert and served as a light for them as they traveled in the dark. Imagine that glorious cloud that formed in the heavens that led the way for them during the day and shielded them from their enemies. What do you say about that, my dear wife? Can you picture the scene? She says, wow, yes, I could just imagine that scene. Oh, wow, amazing. And he says, my dear wife, do you know how the cloud of glory and the pillar of fire would change shifts? When the sun was about to rise, the pillar of fire would wait patiently until the cloud of glory took form in the heavens, and then it would vanish. And at sunset, the cloud of glory waited patiently until the pillar of fire was formed, and only then it would vanish. What do you say about that, my dear wife? She says, wow, I didn't even know that. That's incredible. He says, my dear wife, you know what we learned from this? That before the sun set, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made sure to ignite the pillar of fire. So my dear wife, please, I ask that before the sun sets, please light our two pillars of fire. That Erev Shabbat, she wasn't only cured of her dilemma, she lit the Shabbat candles 2 hours before the Shkia, before the Zman. How's that possible? How did she remember to light the candles on time? You know how? When Rav Yosef's wife passed by her living room and saw those 2 candlesticks sitting on her mantle, what did she see in front of her eyes? She pictured the pillar of fire that her husband spoke about. How did that happen? Because her husband excited her emotions. He triggered her imagination. What did he tell her? Which words did he use? Pillar of fire, clouds of glory, ascending, descending, sunrise, sunset, lights, candles. He didn't say, don't you understand that I'm an important rabbi and if you're going to desecrate the Shabbat, they'll write about us in the papers. No, he didn't say that because he knew that those words are not going to be convincing enough. They come from the world of logic. But when a man excites a woman with emotional words, scenic words, stirring words, imaginative words, she responds. This is how a man should speak with his wife when he needs her to fulfill his request, and in general, speak to the heart. I'll put it to you this way. If you're transmitting FM on your radio dial, but your wife is only picking up the AM signal, is she going to hear the sounds that are coming through the FM channel? Absolutely not. So what should you do? Try moving your radio dial from FM to AM so that your wife tunes into the channel that she's used to hearing. In other words, if you want to be persuasive, you have to approach your wife from an emotional place and not from a place of logic and intellectuality. One last point concerning the characteristics of a woman that a man should know about. We said that because the woman is from the world of emotions, that heightens her sensitivities and imagination, and as such, by the way, it also creates worries. A woman is a worrier. Why? There's no real answer to that question. She just plain worries. A mother could tell a child when it's 90 degrees outside, Davidle, please take a sweater with you when you go out. And the kid says to her, but Ima, it's summer out there. And she says, well, but maybe winter will come early this year. You never know. That's a mother. If the kid says, Ima, don't worry, is it going to help? No, because a woman is a worrier by nature. That being said, the men should know that their wives are always worrying about them, and you should be aware of a general shlom bait rule. If you can't be home on time, if you're stuck in traffic, if your car broke down, if you're going to be late at work, if you're visiting your friend or your mother, call your wife to let her know you're going to be late. Be in touch with your wife. Why? Because if you don't inform your wife, she'll start to imagine that the most terrible things in the world happen to you. Why is it like that? Because a woman is full of emotions and she worries. So please call your wife if you know you're going to be late, because once she knows your schedule, she'll feel more relaxed, she'll calm down. But when you don't call, your wife conjures up horrible images in her mind that cause her tremendous tsa'ar and aggravation. So do a chesed with your wife and inform her as to when you'll be home if you think that you're going to tarry. Remember that the God who gave us the Torah and commanded us with the words, Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, the God who commanded us to honor our parents, is the same God who said, Tigmol chasadim im ishtecha. A man has to do kindnesses with his wife. How does a man do a chesed with his wife? One of the ways that you could do a chesed with your wife is when you call her to let her know you're going to be home later than planned. And that's not only going to make her feel good and calm her worrisome nature, but it's going to make you a responsible husband and father. It's going to turn you into a caring person. Not only that, but you should appreciate the fact that someone out there in the world is concerned for you. That deep sense of hakarat hatov for your wife should prompt you to extend yourself to her and care enough to call her when you're not coming home on time. And you should dafka do that because she cares about you, because she worries for you so much. One more thing before we conclude this segment of a woman's characteristics. You should know that many of the shalom bait issues that arise in a home is when both the husband and the wife are correct in their feelings, when both of them are right. But in a home, we don't search for justice. We don't look for tzedek. In a home, we're required to look for the shalom, for peace. How does one search for peace and acquire it? By being smart. Don't be right. Be smart. So many couples fight to be right. They fight to come out the winner in the argument. That's not going to create shalom between you and your spouse. You're only going to achieve the opposite effect. If you want shalom, if you want peace in your home, you have to be smart and not worry about being right. Since a man comes from the world of sechel, this is a tip for you guys. You have the ability to put the brakes on a situation if you want to, and you could do it very quickly. A woman can't. Her emotions lead her to everywhere in the world, upside down, backwards and forwards, and all around the block. That's why when a woman blows up at something that you did or said or didn't do and didn't say, it takes her a lot longer to settle down. And that's because she has to feel that all those emotions have been shared and released. But as a man, you have the ability to be calmer than her, to be more collected than her. Instead of responding to her emotions so quickly with frustration, let her talk. Let her vent. Let her speak her mind. Because you're going to notice that after a few minutes, her stress levels begin to diminish. Suddenly, she's not aggressive as she was when she first began her whole mussar shmooze to you. And if you're going to give her another minute, you're going to notice that she stops talking and all you hear are sounds, only sounds. Oof. What happened here? I'll tell you what happened. The volcano erupted, and you were good enough and calm enough and patient enough to allow all the lava to come out. Once the lava is out, the mountain is still. And once your wife is calmer, and more still, you should know that she's waiting with avid anticipation for you to approach her and speak with her. So you approach her, and in the most endearing way, and I'd say not only endearing, but heartbreaking way, you speak to her with an open heart. You speak to her heart with words that are going to stir her emotions. You know what's going to happen when you take that approach? Everything good that you dreamed of, everything that you imagined, everything good that you wanted, you're going to receive in abundance. You know why? Because you didn't look for the justice in the situation. You didn't look for the tzedek, even though you may have been justified, even though you may have been correct. Instead, you looked for and you ran after the shalom. All you wanted was peace in the house. And if you understood from these classes that a woman is all about the emotional world, then you'll be smart enough to assess the situation and respond to her AM dial so that your words will have lasting effects. Now, I want the men to think about the question I'm going to ask. When, for example, you haven't called to let her know that you'll be home late, and she responds in a very frustrating way and she shows her aggravation, is it because she hates you or loves you? It's because she loves you. And let me tell you that a woman who really doesn't love her husband doesn't care when he comes home. A woman who doesn't love her husband can very easily go to sleep at night and actually fall asleep even though she hasn't heard from her husband for hours on end. And when that happens, you should know that that couple doesn't have a loving and positive marital connection. So when she responds to you in a frustrating way, because you're not calling her, you should look at it as a compliment, not that she's a nag. You know what you should say when she's showing her frustration? You should say, Miriam, I'm so sorry that I didn't call you for the last 3 hours to let you know that I'm going to be home late and that I worried you so much. But you know what I just realized, Miriam? How much you really love me. I mean, I wasn't in touch for 3 hours and look how you can't be without me. Miriam, that's how much you love me? Wow, thank you. What reaction do you think you're going to get from her? Huh? Tell me. The men out there should know. Your wife loves you. She was created differently than you. And she was created that way in order to complete you, to protect you, and help you become more elevated. Therefore, you should consider her feelings and treat her with dignity and with respect. This ends the last segment of the characteristics of a woman, which I hope will help the men see their wives in a different light, and that it will prompt them to approach their wives in a kinder, more loving, and appreciative manner. The next time we meet, Be'ezat Hashem, we're going to be exploring the mystical side of marriage, seen through the eyes of our Chachamim and various Torah psukim, and we're going to delve into the core and the fundamentals of marriage through a more elevated and esoterical side. Until then, I want to wish you all an amazing day, day with bracha, siyata dishmaya, with clarity, with shalom, re'ut ve'achva, and may you both be zeicha to experience the ultimate love and the ultimate rejoicing, and that is to see the coming of Mashiach in our day. Amen. Ken. Yehi Ratzon.